Doesn't seem like it lately.
Yeah. All right, folks, it is 6 o'clock. Ms. Sharon, can we please call this meeting to order?
Lewis. Here. Cook, absent. LaPlante.
Here.
Rowley.
Present.
Taylor.
Here.
Wardinski. Here. Yavorski. Here.
Fabulous. We could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. At this point, I will now ask for an agenda review.
Just have one item to add on the consent agenda. Item Q, approval of an expenditure not to exceed $5,000 to repair the roof at Station 7. We're still waiting for some bids. We have one bid so far, so we're waiting for a couple more bids to come in before we choose the vendor.
Is there any more additions or subtractions? Hearing none, I will now open up the floor for public input on any agenda items. Once again, this is public input on agenda items only, please. Mr. Bristow, please, if you would just sign our register.
Item N. Would like to know the discussion as to why both resigned at the same time. Thank you.
Going to move that to G or new business G?
We'll go new business G. Is there anyone else? Public input going once. Public input going twice. 3 times. We will now close public input, and I will ask for an agenda approval, please.
Motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support. Is there any discussion? All in favor with an aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay. Hearing none, that is passed. I will now ask for a consent agenda approval.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have support. Is there any discussion here? All in favor with an aye, please.
Aye.
Opposed with a nay. Hearing none, that is approved. I do not have an engineering report, so let us move on to pending business with the chief's report. Chief Gunner, the floor is yours, sir.
All right. In the month of April, the fire department responded to 214 calls, which brought our year-to-date total up to 787. We also had 78 overlapping incidents, which accounted for 36% of the calls. EMS, once again, the big winner. We have applied for a SAFER grant, which would add 2 personnel to the floor. If we win this award, then we would increase our daily staffing to 5 per shift and allow an increase in minimum staffing to be increased to 4 people. Assistant Chief Fire Marshal Starkey has retired after 32 years of service to the fire department, so we congratulate him on his years of service. Captain Tennant has been certified as a Fire Inspector 1 in the state of Michigan, so congratulations to him. And paid on call Mason Bazzotti has passed his National Registry EMT exam and is now a state certified EMT basic, so kudos to him. Many of you may have noticed we have a new mini pumper in the parking lot that was just delivered today. So we're excited to start working on that and get that equipped and put in service. That's going to be replacing Rescue 6 and Engine 6.2. And it'll be housed over at Station 6. And that's pretty much my report.
Chief, just a quick question, if you don't mind. With the SAFER grant adding 2 personnel, how long of a time frame is it? Is that for 1 year, 2 years?
That's a 3-year.
3 years?
3-year grant, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And one last question. It was just a class that graduated from...
From the Fire Academy, yep, we had our 2 cadets. Thank you for bringing that up. They passed. So they'll be joining our paid-on-call ranks, and they'll been invited to attend training tonight since we're doing post-testing.
Yay! Awesome. Any other questions? Chief Bluner, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to committee reports. The Zoning Board of Appeals, Trustee LaPlante.
Yeah, on our last meeting, on April 16th, we had two variances, requests for variances. One was for property at 3310 State Road. And this was for a horse barn, so the variances, it basically was a bunch of side yard variances for an existing building that was on the property. It was two buildings combined. But to meet the criteria to have a horse barn, it would have been okay if the building stayed existing where it was for any other use, but it had to be 100 foot. So that was approved. The hardship would be otherwise she has the property to use it, but she would have to relocate the barn. So that was approved. And the last item was at property at 4111 East Glenway. And that was, it's a corner lot on the corner of Glenway and Shannon Lane. And they want to put a 6-yard privacy fence in the front yard, in which there's already an existing fence there. The new fence will be in the same place as the other fence. It's a small lower fence. It doesn't interfere with the other streets. There's actually a couple of people in the neighborhood that were in favor of it. So that was approved too. And that's all I have.
Is there any questions? Trustee LaPlante, thank you. Moving on to Planning Commission, Trustee Taylor.
Good evening. We did not have an April meeting, but I was unable to report on the March 27th meeting, so I would like to do that now.
Please.
Thank you. There was 2 items on the agenda. One was the approval for a special exemption permit and site plan for a campground at 3995 North Oak Brook and 404 State Park Drive. That was I believe it was at one time a trailer park or a camp, something to do with that. I wasn't at this meeting, but as I'm reading the notes, that was approved to move forward with that. So that will be a nice addition to our community. More details to follow how that's going to go. We also approved Consumers Energy at property 42672 2 Mile. They want to put a substation in there. There's few things, sidewalks, and pending a few other little things that they do, but that approval was approved. And that is all.
Is there any questions? Trustee Taylor, thank you. Moving on, DPW Committee, Madam Treasurer.
Nothing to report.
Parks and Recreation Trustee Cook is not here this evening, but I wanted to bring to your attention, I talked about the slow no wake poll that the city has put out. There is still 2 weeks left for that poll to be opened. Currently 313 responses, so if you have not yet chimed in, please do so, or at least spread the word that they're still accepting information on that one. Let us move on to Fire Department Infrastructure Committee. Madam Treasurer.
Okay, as you all know, the committee's been meeting trying to figure out exactly what we want to do with the stations. The township has been working on trying to get the Michigan State Police Post, or it's been a while, but there's starting to be things happening. They're supposed to meet again on the 21st of this month, but it would still have to be signed by the governor before we'd actually get the property. But the chief has been working very hard with the firefighters to, if we built a new station, this is what we want there. So he has prepared an RFP that we could put out to request bids from engineering, because that would be the first step. We would need the engineering done to tell us how much of this new station that we would want would cost and if it would be feasible for us to do it. So we want to be ready to go just as soon as the state says that we have that property, that we could start putting this RFP out. So that's why I presented it to the board now. I didn't know if anybody had any other discussions. We have a timeline in there of when we would put schedule the RFP out, but those are just kind of placeholder dates until we actually have the confirmation from the state. So I thought if the rest of the RFP looked good, we could say that like 3 of the fire station committee members could change the dates to fit whatever timeline we needed. unless there was other changes that anybody had to the RFP. I didn't know if anybody had any questions on it.
Yeah, that makes more sense to me, because the last I remembered, we didn't even know if we had the police post yet, and I'm looking at these dates. I was kind of wondering
Yeah.
if I had missed something.
No, they were just kind of placeholders.
My other question was in regard to, I know we did the wording to put it on the ballot for the increase in the operating millage. Does one have anything, is that money that would go possibly towards this, or would this be something else entirely?
That would be up to us when we set our budget. I would definitely think that if we're increasing the millage, we already are setting money away for this fire station with the millage that we have right now. So if we're increasing the millage, we could put more into it. It's not to say that the whole one extra mill that is going to be dedicated to the fire station, but we definitely could start putting more away. The more we put away now, the less we'd have to try and go for later, because this is going to be probably a couple years worth of work. So,
But we're not selling it as this millage is to,
Right.
right,
that's what I understand, right?
right. It's not
To build it is.
specifically to be to this, but
Fire operations, and as Madam Trustee said, we put away money into building fire department buildings now. The question is, we've got 2 buildings that are falling apart. What do we want to continue to throw good money up at or look at as an investment? The money's already being set aside.
yeah, the goal is to try to get as much set aside beforehand, but also we have the day-to-day operations too.
Are there any other questions or comments?
I think it's the next logical step to get this going, so, get somebody in there to look at it, they're gonna tell us, give us a good idea of cost and what we're really looking for, so, yes, it's the next logical step, and we should do it as soon as possible.
Okay. Then I'd make a motion to approve the RFP contingent on the finalization of the property transfer for 405 North Euclid Avenue with the timeline to be scheduled by fire committee members Taylor, Wardinski, and Cook.
Sorry, I'm back up
Support.
there.
Sharon, did you get all that? I'll let you
Yes,
catch
I
up.
did.
Outstanding, thank you. And
I
that
got
was
that.
support?
Oh, yeah.
Is there any discussion? Well, I will chime in as it looks like all of the things are aligning, and I'd like to think the governor can find a single dollar in her budget, but she has not yet, so we are still in the planning stage. So unless there is no other discussion, all in favor with an aye, please. Aye. Opposed with a nay. Hearing none, that is approved.
And that was it.
Very good, thank you. All right, moving on to board reports. We will start with the supervisor's report, and I'll be as brief as possible. This is more long-winded than normal. Great news, a couple of our road projects have already begun, so I'm sure we've seen the orange cones. 2 of them are chip and seal products. You see a lot of activity happening now with crushing and shaping. You are not going to see a finished product on these until usually mid-July into August. The temperatures have to be steady in order for this to seal and adhere up there. Otherwise, it will never fully cure, and then everybody that lives in that street will call us wanting free car washes. So it's got to be the right condition for that one. So those are coming up. Wanted to touch on some water and sewer updates with you. Thanks to Mr. Bristow, you heard last month about a new PFAS standard. Currently, Eagle has one set at 8 parts per billion. The EPA just came out with one with 4. So we expect Eagle's going to lower their standard to match the EPA criteria. But I wanted to bring this to your attention. Our water treatment plant continues to have no detect on PFAS. So there is no PFAS coming out of our water plant. That's great. However, our wastewater plant is detecting PFAS. So the standard for wastewater systems is a 12. We are currently at a 5. So our plant superintendent seems to feel this is most likely coming from when people are washing their clothes. So all of the PFAS that is in your clothing and PFAS in all of the soil in this entire region, most likely what's happening with that one. But once again, being less than half of what the standard is. we're in a pretty good position. Keeping with wastewater, we're going to be using a new method to treat the waste. Our system consists of 250 miles of sewer line. Once it's collected, it's treated using chlorine. That's right here in at our plant right here. So we're soon going to be treating our waste with a UV disinfectant system. It's very efficient. It's going to spare us some of the pitfalls of supply chain issues with the chemical. It's also going to be beneficial from the safety perspective, both by the employees that have to handle it there and for the and for our community, as we're no longer going to have to store thousands of gallons of chlorine right in our own backyard. So this is part of our scheduled capital expense projects, and I hope to have that up and running very soon. Lastly, last week I had the honor of representing the great state of Michigan in Washington, D.C. for the National Association of Towns and Townships. Our group received an update from the White House staff and the directors regarding the upcoming election, the EPA drinking water regulations, infrastructure implementation, and the grant application that goes along with that, and a discussion about federal funding for rural roads and bridges. It was a fabulous tour of the White House and great meetings with Representative John James, Alyssa Slotkin, Dan Kildee, John Molinar, Jack Bergman, Senator Peters, and lastly, Senator Debbie Stabenow. A few of the issues that we were addressing was a proposed national truck weight limit of 91,000 pounds that could go down our roads at any given time. No locals, that is exactly what it would be nationwide. There would also be no limit for electric vehicles. So if you imagine those big metro buses or garbage trucks, or you fill in the blank as electric vehicles, all the way to those batteries, there would be no limit for an electric vehicle. We took exception to the definition of a rural community having a population of 200,000 people or less. So the bill also imposed a $25 million minimum project amount. Both of these items are part of the Rebuilding Rural Roads Act and the SHIP IT Act. We discussed the unserved and underserved populations with the Reconnecting Rural America Act, which deals with the internet connectivity, and along those same lines was the Affordable Connectivity Program Extension Act. This provides $30 monthly benefits to eligible households for a discounted internet service. So the funding for that program just ended, so we were lobbying for that extension. We support the Volunteer First Responder Housing Act, so this will greatly help the tremendous shortage of firefighters. And we discussed how the Department of Labor's new overtime law could negatively affect townships. Lastly, we discussed the Farm Bill. With ag being the second largest industry in the state, it was the largest impact or utmost importance to us. So it appears that this bill could possibly become a catch-all for a bunch of other bills and acts to be poured in.